What is going on, YouTube? Zero Elite here. I'm back again with a new video, episode 1 of the Star Trek Picard Borg Cube. And just want to thank you very much for tuning in to today's video. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I definitely appreciate that. And I don't know how many episodes this is going to go. We might finish this off in one. Let's see how we go and how much we can get done. But what I've gone ahead and done off camera, I went on Google and I did a search on that search engine, just typed in Star Trek Picard Borg Cube and pulled up some screenshots and saved them, and then I also saved a screenshot of an original Borg Cube from Next Gen, just so I can have something to work off of and a little differentiation between the two. This is our main focus, though. You can see that they're clearly different in design. The Picard Borg Cube is way more pixelated as opposed to the TNG Borg Cube, which is much more, I guess, an industrial look where you can see the pipes and all the mechanical parts. It's got a couple of the blocks and stuff, but it's not nearly as pixelated. And then this one is also damaged too, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this. I'm not going full screen here. Going to be using this picture for the majority of the build. Have something to look at. I'm just grabbing a couple of things that I feel that I'm going to need. However, I'm going to show you exactly what blocks you're going to want to be using. At this point, I'm just kind of browsing to see which blocks I could possibly need for the build. Alright, so basically, I need one more. All you're going to need for this is the green glass, and then the green blocks, and then this checkered nether brick, I think it was, or something like that. And then you need the sea lantern, and then you need the dark gray concrete. And then you're going to need these darker concrete blocks as well. So this thing isn't going to be too complicated to make. We're literally just building a grid. So I'm going to start off the ground, and I'm just going to work my way up so that I can start to build off of something. I'm going to delete the access underneath. I'm just trying to get an idea of how tall I want to make this thing, and like I said, we'll get rid of anything that we need to get rid of underneath it. After I have my height, the first block is going to be a 20 by 20. However, what we are essentially doing is we're going to make 4 of these. Now, the really cool thing in the design that I've come up with for this build is that after this is all said and done, if you decide for whatever reason that this Borg Cube is not big enough for you, because that is one thing too, it's not super big. I mean, it's a pretty decent size compared side by side with any of the other ships that I've built, but it's probably not as big as it should be. And the reason for that is I wanted to keep the tutorial either down to 1 video or just 1 or 2, maybe 3 videos at the most, as opposed to like 6 or 7 videos. So that was my main reason, but my point is that off of the grid that you're going to see by the end of this screen capture, you can increase it and multiply it as many times as you want to get the desired size. Because one of the really cool things about this Borg Cube, and even the original Borg Cube in general, is that it's not necessarily a thing of beauty. It doesn't have any type of pattern to it. What it has on one side on the right, it's different on the left. So we can use that to our advantage in this build, to where there's only really a couple of rules that we have to follow, and that we're really going to be doing this in a 3-layer process. But we'll get to that in a moment. Let's get our first of 4 blocks done, and all I'm doing 20 high, 20 wide. So I'm just counting out each one by 20. I'm just going to make a frame block. And then I'm going to repeat this process 3 more times. And like I was saying, the reason I had this picture up during this build was because I really wanted to see this thing while I was making, because I've never actually made a Borg Cube before. Not necessarily a harder build. In some ways it's very easy in comparison to the Enterprise and the other ships I've done, but in other ways, you know, it's challenging too, because it still has a lot of detail in its own right. And I think that there's a certain way to do it, and I tried to do that as much as possible in this tutorial, and I really hope that you guys enjoy this, because this video was based off of user request. And that's going to bring me to my next thing. If there's any ships that you would like to see me build, or anything that you'd like to see me build in Minecraft, sound off in the comments section below. You never know, if I have enough people commenting, or if I'm really feeling the ship build, like in this case with the Borg Cube, I might just end up building it. I've had a couple people ask me about the USS Voyager. I've had a couple people ask me for the Enterprise D. So if that's something you want to see me build, sound off in the comments below. If there's a different ship that you want to see me build, sound off in the comments below. Or if there's a question that you have regarding this tutorial that I don't go into detail enough on, sound off as well. I'm usually very responsive in the comments section. If I don't get to your direct message, I will during the video, either one or the other. So anyway, we finished our first block. So what I want you to imagine here is essentially this block right here is this bottom piece. So we're going to do it again on this side, again on this side, and again on the back. So I'll give us the 3 more times. Then after that, we're going to do the upper row. So it's literally just building a 3D grid off a 20 by 20. And again, you can make this as big as you need to. I'm going to skip a little bit further along in the video. Because there's no point in just watching me build out this thing in real time. I can skip a little bit ahead in this tutorial, I think, just because what you're going to be doing, it's a lot of repetition in this one. So at this point, I'm literally just tying up the last of the loose ends. In other words, I'm getting the last of my wireframing done. I just want to make sure everything lines up before I start filling stuff in, because what I'm going to do at every single joint, once I close in the walls, I'm going to delete a block in every single joint here, so just so I know where the middles are. Like I said, this thing isn't following any type of pattern, but once you do have your walls covered, you're not going to see these lines, and you're probably going to want to know some type of idea of where your middle is pretty much what I'm getting at. So you can see now I've got a 3D Borg Cube that we've made completely. We started off with the first one, and then we added 3 more going around, and then I repeated this process again above it. And this is just, again, a 20 by 20. Very, very simple to build. And if you decide that, oh, this is only, I want to make this thing twice the size. I mean, hell, if you really wanted to, excuse my language, but if you really wanted to, if you want to make this thing even bigger, you could take this existing cube and now repeat this process 4 times going around, and then go up again and repeat that 4 times around. You can make it as big as you want, because the detailing, that's really where the fun's going to come in on this. And we're going to get to that in just a moment here. Alright, so before we hop into the next video, And I'm just going to skip over this in episode 1. I'm going to try to do all this in one video, I think. Um, I've double checked and I've made sure that every single joint here that should have a line has a line. So go through your blocks before you close it in, and then go up to each and every single joint and then delete the block in the middle. So at that point I'm starting to close stuff up. Let's hop over to 2. So you can see I've closed it in. Now, I'm sure you're noticing, like, oh wait, this lower corner right here is one in, just like the picture. So that's something you're going to want to do too. If you're just now starting to fill this in, just in this front corner here, go one in. So you're just literally shaving off one row. Very easy to do in the front. Just want to keep that line there because we're trying to make this as close to the picture as you possibly can. You can see I've got my markers I've deleted, and now I'm literally all these little cuts in here, and this is going to be a 3-part process. The first part is literally just making all these darker cuts here, like this darker line here. Now, step 2 is going to be adding these greener lines, and that's where this block is going to come in, because this one looks a lot like these. Has that double row grid pattern that I think will work out great, and it's not the same color, but it's pretty close. Step 3 is going to be from the inside, filling these holes in with black. Not in the front here. We're going to use, this is where this part right here, that's supposed to be like, I guess like a force field, keeping the exposed or damaged part of the ship from being exposed to the outside space. We're going to be using green glass and then green concrete. So I'm not going to jump too far ahead. As far as we're working on this one right here, this bottom cut, and I'm not going off of any type of pattern or anything. I'm just cutting it out of our existing block, and I'm seeing how it looks, and I'm seeing what looks good. Now, I can tell you what I'm going to end up doing here is just along the line of this hole here, I'm going to use that green concrete, and then we're going to fill that in with the glass. I tried to do this checkered pattern here, but it didn't look right, so I just decided to do the flat green. You can see I'm trying to mess with that right now. We're going to fast forward a little bit. So I'm just trying to look at to see what I want to do. Ultimately, that is not what we're going to settle on here. You can see I even tried using these concrete blocks to try to maintain it, and it just, no matter what I did, it looked so weird. It doesn't look nearly as good as what I settle on. And what you see in the thumbnail of this video is the finished Borg Cube. So if you like that, then you should really like what I come up with. And I even tried this green wood here. I tried a couple of different things before I ultimately settled on what I settled on. But we're not going to sit here and go through the whole thing. Just going to fast forward through it. So like I said, a lot of this is just going to be isn't too difficult to replicate. So you don't have to even match that same exact pattern what I have as far as how I cut it out. Best suggestion I can make right here is just look at this hole right here and look at how it jags in and try to replicate that. And if you like how I tapered mine off here with the green concrete going around and then the green glass to give the impression that that's a force field, you're one step ahead. Doesn't look like much now, but like I've been saying, this is going to be a three-part process, adding stuff on layer by layer by layer. By the time we get done with the third process, or third layer I should say, we'll be done, and this thing is going to look completely different. So it got pixelated there for a second, but basically what I'm working on right now is this uppercut right here. And if you're in a situation you don't have access to a computer and you can't pull this up, use your phone. That's definitely another way to do it, or your tablet, or whatever you have access to. If you need to, you can even draw it out. But if you have something to look at, that is best. Even when I'm doing my enterprise, you guys usually don't see it because I try to keep the video full screen. But if it's full screen, chances are I'll either have my tablet with me or my phone. When I was doing this particular build, I didn't have access to either one of them at the moment. My phone had died and I couldn't find my tablet, so I didn't go full screen. But I think this will kind of work out a little bit better because I can point out exactly what I'm using as a reference, because there are a few cuts here that I used to build out a few things on the ship. But as I started going more along the sides, especially on the other side, really winged a lot of it. At this point, I didn't go as far on the left as I did on the right. They're not really matching too much, so I'm just cutting out a little bit extra, looking at this picture here, seeing how it is on the right side, now on the left. I'm trying to match this out a little bit, see how it goes to, it cuts this way and then it goes up. That's what I'm doing. I cut this way and now I'm going up. Not looking to hit 100% accuracy, just want it to look kind of like it. Let's jump forward just a little bit. You can see I'm already adding in my green barrier line with the green concrete. And from what I can see in the picture, it looks like there was only 3 parts on the ship that were damaged, here, here, and here. If there was another one, let me know. Tell me where you found that screenshot at, because I couldn't find any, couldn't really find any other angles of this particular Borg cube other than from this side. All right. Let's jump just a little bit further forward. Take a second to catch up and then we should be good. Look at that. So it's not perfect. Mine is a little bit different right here than it is right here. Mine goes down at an angle, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be 100%. We're mostly using this as a reference, but still trying to stay as close to it as we want to or as we can. So now I'm going to get rid of this corner down here. Again, not working off any type of graph, just taking a leap, and I'm starting to cut it out to see how I want it to, how high I want it to be. We're going to skip past this because we've already gone through 2 of them. And I think that we should be good. So I'm trying to keep this down to 1 video. Even though I've got 5 recordings, I'm going to try to condense this all down into one, I think. Because it's not a super big build. And each of the recordings are only like 20-minute recording sessions. At this point I was just kind of testing out other alternatives for what I wanted to do with this line here. I am going to come back to that, but now you can see I'm going to add step 2, which is adding an additional layer on top. We're not cutting anything out yet. Kind of looking on this side, seeing how this is pixelated, and I'm looking at these blocks right here and this block right here. You can see I'm going to do another one underneath it. So I did that one, and I just did that one. That's right there. So you can see how I decided to do that. Now this line right here, and then going down here and here, is going to be this first dark concrete one. Not the damaged one, but the solid brick one. I forget what it's called. I'm going to click on it in just a second and replace it either in this video or in the next one. And again, just trying to get an idea, because what I'm really trying to replicate is, you see these corners, how it has like the cyan or like cyan green. I'm trying to replicate that, but no matter what I threw down here, it didn't look right. And I would have loved to have kept it, but I think if I would have left this on here, I think it would have ruined the build, because it just sticks out so much now. You can see I'm just adding a cut. This is one of the next steps that we're going to be repeating over and over again. Because a lot of it we're going to be adding layers, and we're going to be cutting, and then we're going to be going behind those cuts and then adding black lines and maybe in some spots green concrete. But right now I'm just adding a lot of these paneling and these darker black cuts going into the block. And you don't have to be doesn't have to be straight lines. You notice like some of these, they surprisingly enough, and I don't think it was a coincidence, it looks like circuit boards the way it's going, but it still has a pixelated pattern to it. So try to replicate something like that. That's the best way I can describe it. That's what I went for here. I added stuff just bit by bit by bit, and I didn't take up a huge area. Like literally how I did most of this thing, if not all of it, was I focused on this area. Once I did almost all of this, then I went to this one, then I went to this one, then this side, then this side. So I just broke it down piece by piece by piece by piece. So that's going to get us at the end of part 2. Let's go ahead and hop right into part 3. Moving right along. So you can see we've already started to add in some of our extra layering, and now we're cutting away stuff too. I'm just trying to get an idea of what's going to look good. At this point, I was kind of thinking that maybe I was going to try to keep both sides even, but it was like right after this that I decided, oh wait, it's not even on both sides. There's no point in replicating that. So there's no need to, if you do one thing on the left, do it on the right. This is probably one of the only builds that you can definitely exclude that. So now you can see I'm going to switch to this darker concrete. I'm just going to literally replace this outline right here. Don't do the middle one. Switch that back to the dark gray concrete. Polished black stone brick. I believe this was from the new update. I'm still getting used to their names. Could have sworn I switched that back to the regular dark. I think. Alright, so I haven't really been saying too much for a moment, just been kind of letting the video ride out. It's kind of self-explanatory what we're doing, literally just replacing that green block with now that polished black stone. And this is literally the only block that we do this on. It's the only time that I use this block for the whole build. I might end up maybe taking it off at some point. I haven't really decided yet. It doesn't look bad with it finished, so I might end up leaving it. I'm not really sure yet. Kind of gonna wait and see what happens. So I just actually finished building this thing today, same day that I'm recording this tutorial. Now you can see I'm using the broken blocks here to try to like mess around and see if I want to have this as the layering on that's going on top, but I end up deleting it. I'm only using the dark. Because that was one thing that I noticed looking at this picture. There's really only two types of, excuse me. There's only two types of surface that I can see on this entire Borg Cube. There's pretty much 99.9% of it that looks like where my cursor is right here. Then there's these circuit board panels. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So that's why you can see there's only like 3 or 4 blocks that I'm using for this whole build. Now you can see I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, going from corner to corner, but eventually, as I start going more stuff done on this side, I am going to start sticking more to one block at a time. Again, right now I'm just looking at these cuts as inspiration. That's what I did right here, was literally this line right here, this dark line. So do the same thing. You can either copy what I'm doing here, or pull up the picture that you have, and we're literally just looking at the darker cuts, and we're just shaving off parts of our cube, and eventually we are going to go back with the darker color, almost straight black, and go in one and then cover that. And it'll look really, really good, and especially in certain parts where you add in the regular green concrete to make it glow like the Borg technology in certain parts. It's going to look, it's going to pop really nice. So you can see I'm adding in a couple of my outer layer blocks. Start giving it a little bit of the pixelation. I'm just looking for spots that I can do that now. One thing that you're going to notice that is kind of different from my build to the picture is that there aren't as many outside blocks like I'm about to add as there are cuts into it. The reason I ultimately decided to do it was because as I was going, I was noticing that on here it just wasn't looking right. So that's why I have a lot more of outer blocks that you're going to see me adding on here, but the way that I do it, it ends up looking pretty good. I want to show you one completed one so you can see how to do your other ones, but there's not really a set pattern to it. It's kind of random, but you have to do certain things in each block. Like for example, like the pair of these boards right here, like this one, I just added that. You're usually going to see that in each panel on here going in some type of direction, but there's not going to be too many of them. One or two, maybe three. Like in here, there's 3 of them. And this one's got 2, so it just depends. And then the same thing with the cuts. There's not a ton of cuts, but in some areas, like here, there's a lot. So it's just literally looking at each of these corners and seeing where you want to look at for your detail. And then going back to your build and then just adding it piece by piece by piece. So I'm just kind of deleting a little bit more to see what looks good. And this is just random based on what I have to work with off of this picture and what I think might look good. So I'm kind of just building a circuit board pattern a little bit. That cut's right there looking pretty good. Now at this point, I just have to add in a couple of pixelated blocks on top of it. We don't really need too many more cuts on this side. You can see I mess around to use the polished or broken here, but ultimately I decide just to use the black concrete because the black concrete looks better. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Yep, going to grab the black concrete. Yeah, because you can see here looking at it, it's not, from the picture, it's like straight black. So I want to convey that in this build too. So let's go ahead and jump forward a little bit. See, you can see that looks so much better right there. Now when we add in these other blocks like right there, more along here, it's going to look really nice. And what will be really cool is once we finish this side and this side, you'll have a pretty good idea of what the rest of your cube's going to look like because you essentially have a mini cube. So now above it, again, I'm just repeating the same process that I did below, but I'm doing it in a different order now, completely random. That's going to be the whole main theme with this build. Repeating the same steps but in a random order and in a random pattern. You don't want all 4 sides of this thing to look exactly the same. And we're going to fill in this side with the cuts with the black. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit here. And you see just adding those two green blocks right there, that's where I was talking about, like that little hint of the Borg technology, because you're not seeing that in the picture, and the reason for that is because technically the ship is off. So I would imagine that's why it's not there, but it should be. See, now just that subtle green right there in this area here really makes that pop and come to life. It's going to come even more to life when we add in a few more layers going around it on the outside, but we're starting to get kind of a resemblance of what a Borg cube should look like. You can see I'm not really satisfied with how many cuts I have. I'm just kind of looking over on this side as a reference, but not copying it exactly. Now I'm adding in a little bit of that pixelation layer. You can see I'm literally I'm kind of going off of my cuts a little bit when I'm adding these in. And I'm either doing like boxes, or I'm doing some type of circuit board pattern. This would be like a mix between both, more like a pixelation box, I guess. But that's literally all it is, just shapes like that, and then repeating it over and over and over and over again. But also being aware of what you've got around you to begin with, because you don't want to do shapes that aren't going to necessarily work. Like if I just did a straight square right here, I don't think that would have worked. And sometimes you can throw something down if it doesn't look good, take it down and do it again until it looks right. Sometimes you're not going to know until you look at it. See, that's starting to look pretty darn good. It's looking a lot like a Borg cube. Tell you what. See, that's the thing I don't understand, man. Like, why doesn't Minecraft have a Star Trek skin? That needs to happen. They have Star Wars. They've got like every other skin on the face of the earth except Star Trek. That needs to be a thing. But we'll make it work without it. I'm still able to build all this stuff and make it look like the ships on here. But like I was saying with doing these tutorials, if there's something you want to see me build, it doesn't have to be Star Trek. It could really be anything. As long as I'm feeling it, could be anything nerd related in general. But yeah, looking at this little box right here, that looks like a Borg cube. That looks pretty darn good. Now we're going to do this again on all four or all other three sides of this particular side of the cube. I'm going to fast forward a little bit, see where we're at towards the end. Okay, I added a couple more cuts on this side, just random computer grid pattern. You can kind of see I have like three going like straight above, and I kind of have like the circuit board pattern right there. But again, it was just random based on what I'm seeing right here. Alright, let's go ahead and hop into part 4. At this point, I think we're going to really start shimmying through. Now you can see I've skipped ahead and I did both the top sides here. And I just looked at the picture and just built something out, continued on my same process of cutting away, adding layers based off of the patterns that I cut out, and then filling in those cuts with the black lines, and then eventually in certain sections adding in those green dots for board technology. You can see on this side I'm making a little bit more circuit board patterns here. This is really my main purpose for showing you these last couple of episodes, is because the patterns that I use give you some inspiration to use on your build. And you don't have to have these exact. They really don't need to be. The only thing that you probably want to keep exact was just the overall size of it. Past that, the rest of this, you can just wing it by looking at it. You really can. So I'm kind of repeating the circuit board process again, or pattern I should say, but it's not in line with what I have on the other side. I have it in a different spot going a different way. Because again, just going with that randomness that you see in a Borg Cube. Now, the one thing that I don't know if we're going to go over or not is the interior. That might change in the future. I might do a tutorial on the interior, but at this point I haven't built one. So I don't know. I think I might, for this particular build, I might just keep it to the exterior unless I get a ton of people and this video blows up and I have like a lot of people asking for it. Then at that point, yeah, you know, I'll do a tutorial on it. But we'll see what happens. Right now I'm just trying to get extra content out there, and I'm going to try to, like I said, as I'm doing the bigger builds, I'm going to try to do more smaller builds too. And I'm using just going off of stuff that I might want to build, and then I'm also using a lot of that of the comments that I'm getting from you guys as inspiration too. So again, if there's something you want to see me build, comment below. You can see what I just did there. Literally just quick shot, deleted a bunch of things, and I just went with it. Because again, I'm just going into that randomness, because there are a couple of spots here that looks like it just cut out. It's not necessarily even in a grid pattern. So you don't want to do a ton of that, but just like a little bits here and there, you know? That looks really good. Now we're adding in our top layering, pixelation. Again, I'm just going off of the cuts here as far as where I'm going to be putting these and the directions that they're going to be going in. Some you can definitely replicate on your build. I think it'll come out really good. So I'm just following that up. Almost didn't make an elongated square. I just cut it off a little bit right there. And now I'm adding in those lighter green panels. That's something that every side should have, but not a ton of them. Let's see, just doing that, that looks really good. We're going to go up here, we're going to add some more blocks. I'm going to let it go for a few minutes to give you guys some more examples on how I'm doing this, and then I'm going to skip forward a little bit too, because I don't think it's necessary to see me build all the sides of this in real time, because it's just literally it's random. But I think the important thing to cover is that as long as you're following the basic steps of having the basic kind of like grid circuit board pattern to cut out, and then your pixelation layer to add on, and then filling in those cuts with the black, and then knowing where to add in your green Borg technology. And you're not going to see that in the Picard era Enterprise. This is why you're probably going to want to look up a picture of the TNG era Borg Cube. You'll notice that, like in this side, I've only got that green like right here. And that's how it was in the cube. It wasn't all over the place. It was in certain parts of the cube you'd see that like green light shimmering out. So That's all I'm trying to replicate there. So you don't want to do too much of that, otherwise, like if all these cuts, for example, like if they're all green, it's not going to look right. You want that all these cuts in here that I made primarily black. Very few of them you want to make those green. Right, and a couple more of these lighter panels, and I think we're going to skip forward a little bit. Kind of want to get to the end of this video and then skip to the last one, because all the other sides is literally repeating the same process over 3 more times. So I didn't go over all of it, but I literally just worked my way down, repeating that same process, cutting away little by little here, little by little here, and then backing up and looking at it, and then deciding, okay, do I want to add in blocks here, or do I want to add them in over on another side? So anyway, moving on, I think we're going to skip to the last part of the build, because to continue anymore I think would be a little bit redundant. I think we've pretty much gone over everything that you need to do on your build. One thing I will say is that, like on this side right here, see how this is flat? I don't think you want that. I go back here in a moment. I'm going to fill that in with more pixelation here. But you see, it's all separated, and it's, you know, just layered. Certain parts I've got cuts, certain parts it's flat, certain parts I've got pixelation. It all starts with the cuts that you make, and then you work your way around it. So here we go. Last part, show off video. This is what your finished cube should look like, something like this. You can see I haven't added a ton of green everywhere. And this portion of the video, I think this is the last thing that I do before it's done. So you're going to see me add in a couple of the green spots. So if you've gotten this far and you're literally on one of your last things and you're doing this, you can kind of see where I add them. You can do the same thing on your build also. Another thing, I kind of keep them together. I don't space them out a lot too, because I noticed that in the picture where there are a lot of green lights, they're very clustered together. But it's like a lot of tiny green lights, you know. So that's all I'm trying to replicate here. Just in certain corners, and every corner is going to be a little bit different. See, that right there looks pretty good, where it's looks like it's conveying the Borg technology there. And again, I'm just doing the same thing on this side. That was not the shape I was going for. That's a little bit closer. There we go. And again, I want to kind of keep the cluster of green lights together a little bit. Skip forward. Okay. So I think that's a pretty good idea of where you're going to be like putting your. I kind of like before we. I'm going to jump over to the live feed to show you the final one, but I kind of like work my way around, and like you'll see in the picture, like if you pull up a picture of the Borg Cube, it doesn't like have like a set pattern for each side. So I mean, just look at the picture. That's my best recommendation um, as far as where to put your the green blocks. So we've got one last thing to pull up. I'm going to show you the finished one in real time, and then that's going to wrap up this video. And a cool thing with this, people, fans of the Disco Era Enterprise tutorial, you might catch a glimpse of how the ship looks currently on the outside. Not going to spend too much time looking at it. The main purpose of this tutorial is the Borg Cube, but you might catch a glimpse. I'll tell you, the only thing I don't like about this beta is that it takes 10,000 years to load. At least with the Xbox One edition, it just kind of like load right up. And I thought I had the game up and must have either stopped or I closed out of it before I started streaming, but whatever, we're doing it live. And I'm just going to pull it up. You can see I've got 50,000 save files. That's always very important when you're building stuff on Minecraft, especially if you play on the beta, make multiple save files just to save your work. Because I never thought it would happen to me until it happened, where I had my file get corrupted. It was actually right after I built the Millennium Falcon in Minecraft, so that's the only build that I've lost on here. Other than that, I've done a pretty good job of backing up, making sure I have multiple save files. Alright, we are in Lake Flynn. So you can see I finished, well not finished, but we're getting there. Close to finished Enterprise. But that's not the focus. Focus is this bad boy. The finished Borg Cube. Now you can see a little bit more I was talking about, like with the green where I added, like every single side I did it differently, and I just kind of looked at the picture to get an idea of where the picture had them, and I went off of that. But there's no set pattern on where to put it. You just want to spread it out a little bit, but they're all not in the same side. And then again, making sure that you have these green blocks, dark prismarine. But yeah, I mean, if you looked at it from this side right here, I mean, hey, that looks like an undamaged Borg Cube to me. Now, I will say the only thing that I did not do, and I'm a little bit ashamed to say it, is the top and bottom. But I don't know, I kind of actually like it flat. When I was getting to the end of this today, I was just actually thinking about it, and I was like, man, I don't know if I should do the top and bottom, but I kind of like it flat. I don't know why, it just looks really good flat to me. I might end up going back and be like, no, that's just lazy, you need to do the top because that's how it was, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on it. Not a super hard build to do, but I think this is the way this thing turned out is very unique. I haven't seen anybody else that have done their Borg Cube quite like this. And it was very simple. Just following a few basic steps. Again, you know, cutting stuff out gradually, and then adding in the pixelation, and adding that in based off of what you have, kind of, with the cuts. And just continuing that on and making sure that you have these the dark prismarine color blocks going in, using your picture as a reference, kind of where you can put them. But on the back side, just kind of, I kept my same patterns going, but I just started putting them in random spots. And even like in this corner, I just had like one. You know, I didn't really have a lot. You know, I just kind of maintained the randomness. But I think it looks fantastic. I really do. And I hope that you guys like it as well. I really enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you guys enjoyed watching it. But I think that is going to wrap this one up. This was just a quickie. Definitely have more videos to look forward to. Way more videos with the Disco Era Enterprise, and then you're going to see more tutorials coming up of smaller builds I'm going to be doing in the future based off of your comments. So if you have those ideas, be sure to comment below. And lastly, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Definitely appreciate that in helping me supporting the channel. And I just want to thank you again, and I hope that everybody has a great rest of their day.